Garbage men/women of the world. What's the best/worst thing you have found thrown away? Oh man, my time to shine. I've been working at a waste transfer station, a garbage dump, for many years. The worst I've ever seen, just garbage not counting stuff brought to the hazmat department, a freezer stuffed with a skinned, rotting, headless deer carcass. We nearly called the cops before we realized it wasn't a human. Used needles, the worst being a tie between porcupine couch and the lady who literally handed me a paper bag full of syringes she found during a park cleanup. Large container of old crystallized picric acid. Bomb squad had to deal with that one. The best, a high-end laptop in perfect condition except for a tiny crack on the LCD. Easy DIY repair that took $40 in 5 minutes. Thing would have cost $1.5K new. Enough brand new furniture to literally furnish my whole apartment, and a high-end military-grade inflatable boat. Brand new. The weirdest? A first-gen platelet counting machine, complete with weird tubes of bright green liquid and mercury. When I was prepping it for hazmat disposal, I had to call the company that bought the company that made it for some info. They never digitized the records, but the oldest repair tech still working was super excited, because he remembered servicing them 50 years ago. Coffin. No body, just the coffin. Couldn't see anything wrong with it either. Buckets of testicles from a ranch that had been sitting out in the summer heat for a week. Smelled so bad my coworker hurled. That's not the weird part, by the way. The weird part is the guys wanted their buckets back. Do you know how bad it has to smell to make a garbage collector puke, and they wanted them back? The $10,000 duffel bag. Lady came in super upset because earlier she threw out a duffel bag that she didn't know her boyfriend kept cash in. Over $10,000 in cash. We never found the bag. And finally, 16 full-sized barrels of old vegetable grease some guy had saved up in his garage. He was planning to make a biodiesel car or something. Edit. A lot of people are asking if we get to keep stuff. Officially, no. It's not against the law as far as I know, except for illegal stuff like drugs, but it's against our policy. However, workers do salvage things. As long as it's discreet and they're not selling it, management doesn't get involved. Selling stuff, though, is a big no. We don't fight over stuff. In fact, we'll keep an eye out for things colleagues might need. Most of what we salvage is actually tools and stuff we use at the dump. I've also started a management-approved program to give away free household products that would otherwise be hazardous waste. Paint, oil, cleaners, etc. Some dumps also run thrift stores to divert materials from landfill, but we don't have that kind of space. We now have a Discord. Check out the server in the link in the description. Story 2. My father was a garbage man who also did cleanouts for homes and businesses, where they would rip apart the entire building and throw everything out in their dumpsters. He worked on a ton of really massive houses, some worth tens of millions of dollars. One was worth $40 million and wasn't even the primary residence. Best things I got as a kid? A pretty much unused trampoline with a net and everything, and a go-kart that my dad's friend was able to fix up and we used all the time. And once he cleaned out a deli that was closing down, and we no joke had unlimited Snapples and sodas of every flavor for almost a year. I would drink the Snapples while out on the trampoline. I used the hell out of all 3 of those during my childhood. Story 3. I was a garbage man for a few years, and on these trucks it had a grapple arm that came out off the side of the truck and grabs the bin, lifts, and dumps it. There are 3 cameras on the truck. 2 to see the bin and help you line up and grab a hold of it, and then it switches to another camera view as you dump the bin out and you can see the trash fall out. Well, one day I'm doing my run, grab a trash bin, pick it up, dump it, and out fall a bunch of mannequin parts. I nearly crap myself thinking it's some sort of serial murderer who dismembered somebody and put them in the trash. Mannequins for reasons like this are way scarier than they have any right to be. They always seem to show up at the least opportune times. Or most opportune, depending on which perspective you're seeing it from. Story 4. My father was a garbage man when I was born. I don't remember because I was like 3 months old, but my first dog was in the trash. My dad stopped, picked up a box, and heard some shuffling on the inside, and there were 2 puppies. My dad kept one and the driver kept the other. They were brother and sister, my dad assumed. He kept the male and named him Jasper. He was literally my best friend growing up. I had him for 13 years and my dad tells me the job was worth it just for that dog. He called the police and animal control on the residents but doesn't know what happened after that. All I know is I'm 37 and I still love that dog so much. I'm so thankful my dad saved him and his sister. Story 5. I worked as a garbage man in 1972. A small stray cat jumped into the back of the hopper to look for food. I took him home and named him Saigon. That was the best thing. Second best thing was someone threw out an old pair of skis. There was snow on the ground and me and the other guy each took a ski and stood on it, and held onto the truck. Great fun. Third best we found was an entire case of Brill cream, look it up. And me and the other guy had Brill cream fights all day, total mess. I stripped off before going into my house after work. Worst thing was a garbage can that had live coals in it that started our truck on fire. To save you all the time, I looked up Brill Cream, and it's a British brand of hairstyling product for men. That's straight off of Wikipedia. I don't know how you have a fight with a hair product. I would have to feel it, I guess. I think of it as something a little, I don't know, chunkier? Not chunkier, that's not the right word, but more solid. But that must have been really sticky. Story 6. My dad was a trash man when I was growing up. He would always be bringing cool stuff home to us. He used to say that the poor neighborhoods had the most trash and they threw away literally everything. The best ones I can think of were a brand new BMX bike and like 20 Nintendo 64 games that he found at a video rental store. Also once at the transfer station, one of his coworkers found a dummy arm in the big pile of trash. He pulled it and it ended up being a dead guy. The police later determined that it was a homeless person that got picked up and died when the trash truck compacted him. Well, that is only the most horrific way to die I can think of. I feel really bad for that guy. Talk about unlucky. Story 7. In the early 2000s, my best friend's dad was a garbage man. I used to hang out at their house a lot, and I remember him finding uncut sheets of holographic Dragon Ball Z trading cards in the trash and bringing them back. They were super dope to see. Story 8. When I was a kid, I found a couch. It wasn't very big, but that's why it was so great. 10-year-old me was able to carry it all the way home by myself, about a block and a half. This was before kids having cell phones was huge, so I didn't call my parents about it first, and they were at the store anyway. So I took the couch home and put it in my room. It was pretty dated, made of some material I've never encountered again so far, but I thought it was the stuff. I had a whole couch in my room. How many 10-year-olds had couches in their rooms? Well, my parents came home and they clearly weren't happy. But given I carried it up to the second story and got it into my room, they let me keep it. My downstairs neighbor helped me. I felt like a king. I had a couch. I had a big box TV for my PlayStation. I had it all. Simpler times. How was no one concerned about the state of this couch and what it might be carrying into the house? I count it lucky that OP didn't get bed bugs or something. Story 10. When I was growing up, my neighbor worked at the local council. One night he knocked on the door trying to rehome a couple of kittens that one of the workers had apparently found at the local tip. All I remember was this absolute giant of a man, normally the most calm and chill person I'd ever met, absolutely seething with anger while holding a tiny ginger and white kitten in one of his hands. My guess is that someone had dropped off a box with them in it, hoping it wouldn't be noticed, which somehow seems like more of a jerk move and more effort than to just leave them somewhere public where they might be found, even if you don't want to take them to a shelter. Anyway, as much as I begged and pleaded, I wasn't allowed to keep one, because my dad claimed allergies. No trash kitty for me. Story 11. Not a garbage man, but have rescued projectors, computers, furniture, and even a very expensive Yamaha keyboard, just needed a new plug, from skips/being thrown out. Loads of music scores, a dining room table with nothing wrong with it. I may just be about to get a 65-inch touchscreen TV that's no longer touchscreen. Depends on what happens to it over the next few days. Large companies throw all sorts of stuff away, and they're far more focused on I just need to get rid of this than spending the time to find someone to take it. By the same token, I've also binned about 20 fully working interactive whiteboards because I couldn't get anyone interested in taking them. Story 12. Obligatory not a garbage man, but once many years ago I was asked to deliver books left over from a church rummage sale to a minimum security woman's prison. The books almost filled the bed of my pickup. When I got there, 6 inmates were assigned to unload the books. You would have thought all these musty paperbacks were made of gold. The women were delighted and very grateful. Story 12. We have a good friend who garbage picks. He has done so for quite a while now as a hobby. For years he was the ski fairy. We had 4 kids and they ran through kids' skis, boards, poles, boots, masks like crazy, as all kids do as they grow. He and his wife and son all skied, and he would pick up good stuff whenever he saw it on his rounds. Every so often we would pull into the drive and leaning against the garage would be skis or boots or other equipment that he thought might work for one or more of the kids. The ski fairy had made a delivery. He has found lots of nice things and more valuable stuff, but my favorite story is his finding money. Change, not like $6 in a drawer or box, buckets of it. $780 or so, not mistakenly thrown out, placed with garbage. And $780 in change is heavy. No mistake in it being tossed out. I guess it just wasn't worth counting. Story 13. My dad worked at a landfill for most of my childhood, and my brother and I both got into related companies that dealt directly with landfills for a while. One of the most common things I remember hearing about and seeing all the time were clothing with minor irregularities that had to be thrown away by said clothing company. It was stuff like Roxy, Vans, or other stuff you would see at places like Tilly's or similar clothing stores. One of my old coworkers' families were basically clothed their entire lives from this type of clothing being dumped. The clothing was clean or could be cleaned to a decent level that the clothing was fine to wear. It was dumb stuff like a small rip, missing zipper, or some other weird thing that they couldn't sell it with. Everyone at the landfill was basically in on the scheme. When the truck with the clothing pulled up to the fee booth, someone would radio people at the dump site and it was like a pack of vultures. Everyone on the site would swarm the truck as soon as everything was dumped out of it. Yeah, it always sucks that stuff like clothing, if it has any small imperfections, can't be sold as is. There are some places that can do a discount of like, oh, the misprint or mistake, I don't know, whatever. But a lot of places just throw it away. Can't have it ruining their brand image or whatever to be selling bad clothing, I guess. I really wish they would look more into donating it instead, but whatever. Companies being wasteful, what's new? Story 15. I live in an area where there are many wealthy people. I'm the one that will take people's trash. Well, not so much now because I've learned that less is more, but things I've found include perfect 5-channel surround with wireless rear speakers, now in my garage, several almost working riding lawnmowers. They usually need about $50 of work and then I sell them for like $500 to $1,000. Nice Yamaha Kids gas 4-wheeler. Couldn't get the truck there fast enough for that one. Plastic roller coaster that both my kids played on for many years and gave us many memories. But after a while, I started to get why people do it. It's fun to see people excited about something free that they will use. So for a lot of things, I will either put it by the street and people will come ask if it's really free, or I will post it for sale and we will negotiate a price. And then when they get here, I'll tell them they can have it. That way, it's something that someone really wants. I had a nice TV stand that this Mexican dude showed up for. We'd agreed on $150. He borrowed a truck from a family member and drove over an hour for it. He had neck tattoos. I have some too, but they were covered. I say that to say I don't judge people for tattoos, but he definitely looked like a tough dude. And when I told him he could just have it, he didn't understand why I would do that. But when he finally figured out it was just because, he got emotional and wanted a hug. That had me flying for like a month. Pay it forward if you can. You never know whose day or week you're gonna make. Story 16. Not a sanitation worker, but my uncle was. And he often brought back some pretty sweet items. We grew up poor, but not dirt poor. Definitely paycheck to paycheck. And anything that helped us out was a godsend. So when our uncle often got hauls from his work, he would share his spoils with the family and the neighborhood at large. There was one time a whole fleet of Razor scooters had been thrown out by some store due to minor defects with them. The local kids don't give a damn about a design issue or the sticker the wrong way or whatever. We all had a ball when we got our new, branded to boot, plaything. Also, there was a time when an ice creamery had to dispose of a lot of their stock because of exceeding the best before date. Man, what an epic score that was for the family. We loaded up as much as we could and had a stockpile that lasted us for quite a while. Good times. Story 17. Not a garbage specialist, but my buddy ran maintenance at the local landfill, which is located along an extremely busy highway. One of their duties was to clean up the shoulder of the highway a mile in either direction of the main driveway each day. Cash money. He would find cash most days on the side of the road. People driving with their windows down and the dollar bills would just fly out the window. Sometimes $5, or other times he would pick up as much as $50 to $85. Although he said it was more lower amounts commonly, with the higher dollars being every once in a while. Story 18. I worked as a show cleaner in Melbourne a few years ago, and we would sometimes get leftovers from shows and fairs and other events. For example, after a coffee fair, we got hundreds of cases of all sorts of plant-based milks. They were still on the pallets, and the trader didn't want to load them back up. At a beer and wine fair, the same thing happened but with beer and wine. We had quite a few parties sponsored by that one. Then there was this one big concert where a huge storm hit and everyone left everything they had brought behind to hide in their cars and leave. We found camping furniture and lots of closed beverages and food. One coworker even found a bunch of bundled up cash which amounted to a couple $100. And since it was a concert of a band a lot of older people listened to, we found Coke. Handed it over to the authorities and later were told it was enough to buy a small car from the market value it represented. But the coolest thing that happened at one of the shows was not something we found. There was a big classic car event at the showgrounds, and it had some of the finest and rarest cars you could ever imagine. At the end, we were cleaning as usual, and this guy comes up saying he saw us during the shows checking out some of the cars. At first, I thought he would berate us because we were just the cleaners and should focus on the job. But then, he invites us to ride along if we wanted to. So that was the time I got a childhood dream fulfilled and was allowed to drive in a '69 Dodge Charger RT. This experience and the fact that we got to go backstage with some of the coolest bands was the big plus of an otherwise hard and dirty job. That person who let you ride, oh, that's so good. What an absolute champion. Show cleaner though. Yeah, it makes sense. You would find a lot of stuff there that people just leave behind. I've definitely gone to things and been like, where did whatever go? And it's like, well, guess whoever finds it gets it now. The show cleaners. The show cleaners are the people who get it. Story 19. Friend of mine was a teacher in public schools. We live in a university town. He would be off for the summer when the university quarter ended and the students moved out of their apartments. He would dumpster dive and pick up all these small appliances, coffee makers, blenders, sometimes a TV or computer, plus lots of silverware plates, etc. Basically, he picked up all the small things one needs to live in an apartment. He would store all this in his garage, and then in the fall, he would have a huge garage sale and sell the same stuff back to the incoming students. He always made a lot of money doing this. While some people might judge this as vulture behavior or whatever, this is pretty great for a lot of reasons. First of all, the people who are throwing it away usually on the wealthier end of students, and then OP's friend picks it up and then resells it at a cheaper price. So first of all, helping out college students by selling it at a cheaper price, and helping out OP's friend's pocket, of course. He was a teacher in public schools. As far as I'm concerned, he deserved it.